Greetings and salutations, everyone. It's been a long time coming, if I do say so myself, but I am back with another musical review over some Mafia 3 gameplay this time. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the new Tribe Called Quest album. The title is called We Got It From Here. Thank you for your service. It's the first Tribe Called Quest album in 18 years, and I listened to it and I enjoyed it quite a bit. As my phone goes off in the background, I don't know if you heard that, but silenced everything right now. So yeah, let me give you a quick background on Tribe Called Quest and my history with them. Long story short, I don't really have history with them. Like I told you, first album in 18 years. I'm 22, so the last album they put out, I was 4 years old. So most of their history and all that stuff just went right over my head, just went right past me for most of my life. So what can I say? I just didn't get around to listening to them. Now I will say I was aware of Q-Tip. I've known of Q-Tip for a couple years now. One of my favorite songs, maybe not from him, but with him in it, is Thank You, with him and Busta Rhymes collaborating with a couple of, ad-libs from Lil Wayne and Kanye West. That song, I really appreciate his flow in that song, and so, I started to be like, oh snap, Q-Tip, he's what's up. But then this Tribe Called Quest album comes up, everyone's hyping it up on the internet, they're like, oh my god, first album in all these years, it's gonna be the greatest thing in the world, and I'm like, who are these guys? I've never heard of them. And so, I do my research, I look up their old albums, I'm listening to their old albums, and I'm like, oh, this sound is, pretty good. Feels a little bit dated, not gonna lie, their older stuff, but I'm catching a vibe off of it, and so I'm like, all right, this is good. And then I start hearing of some of the featured artists that are going to be on their album. I hear they're working with Andre 3000. I hear they're working with one of my favorite artists in the world, Kendrick Lamar. I hear they're working with all these fantastic people. So, the hype within starts to build and build and build. So I'm like, holy hell, this album might be the greatest thing of the year. And sure enough, it probably is my favorite rap album of the year. And let me tell you why. We're going to go track by track like we always do in these musical reviews. With track one, The Space Program. I really like this track. I think it is a good introduction to the entire album. I appreciate the little, the sample that it uses. Now, the sample's from some old song. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to know what the name of that song is before the end of the day. But yeah, I really do like how it's a more upbeat type of song. Teddy Pendergrass, Let It Be, that's what it is. Yeah, I really appreciate the sample. I was definitely able to recognize that at the beginning of the track. But it sets a really nice tone for the whole album, and once you hear it, you're just kind of like, oh shit, we're about to get going. And the whole idea of a space program and the whole metaphor for, kind of like impoverished people and how they wouldn't be allowed to hire things. There's a lot of subtext into the lyrics there. You have to listen to it to get it, but I think it's really smart. And it just sets a good tone for the album, as I said already. And I will say at the end, the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory clip, very cool shout out to Gene Wilder, seeing that he's also another one that died earlier in 2016. So yeah, fantastic track. And then right after that, we move on to We the People, which is also the single from this album. I like it. It's a way more traditional rap track. Something in the vein of like, it has that boom bap sound, kind of like Blacker the Berry from Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. We the People is a very solid track, I'd say, but it feels too short to me. I enjoy the track so much. The fact that there's only 2 verses and they're not even particularly long, it's kind of disheartening. But I do appreciate the bars we do get here. We got Q-Tip on it, and we also got the late great Phife Dawg. Phife Dawg, I had, earlier in the year he had died, and I had seen all these images and memorials of him, and people talking about, oh man, Phife Dawg, he was one of the legends. At the time, still hadn't fucked with Tribe Called Quest at the time, so like I listened to a little bit of their music and some of their stuff sounded familiar, but the impact of his death did not quite hit me at the time that it happened. But yeah, as the album got closer, as the hype started to build up, the fact that they were even making an album after all these years with one of their members dead already, and then they performed on SNL, which is, part of what got me hyped. They had the SNL performance on the same night that Dave Chappelle was hosting, which is very impactful. But yeah, just seeing Fife Dog all over this album and in this track "We the People." It's very inspiring, just his work effort and the fact that they, kept all his stuff in there just as he would like. It's really nice to hear him, and Fife Dog he's a good man with these words, man. He has a line about a little kitten and a little girl is smitten. That whole line in "We the People," I think that's a really clever line. And the whole song is just very progressive. It's kind of extending a hand to all types of people, all races, all ethnicities, all genders, all sexual dispositions, all that stuff. So it's just a very good track, and I enjoy it. It has a different sound than most of the songs on this album, I'd say. A little bit more aggressive and a little bit more tribal or primal, I'd say. But nonetheless, I love it. And then that goes on to Whatever Will Be. This one's a little bit more of a... I feel like they ride the track on this one a whole lot more. The word that comes to mind when I think of the instrumental on this one is wavy. The track's very wavy, and it's just a groovy track, it feels like. And then you got Q-Tip singing at the end of it. It just makes it, a little bit more serene, a little bit more laid back and light beat. But they do bring the bars on this track as well. It is a very calming track, especially in contrast to We the People before it. And Whatever Will Be is a good song and just adds to the whole positive thoughts that I have on this whole album. And then we go on to track 4, Solid Wall of Sound. This is actually the Elton John feature, which I saw on the list before I'd heard the album, and I was like, what? Elton John? On a rap album? With like Busta Rhymes in the same track? That just sounds like some fuckery, but no, it works. It works very, very well. You got Elton John's vocals kind of almost sample-esque laying underneath most of the track. And the rapping in the track is actually laid back to a minimum. I feel like they only rap in half this track, and a lot of the rest is just instrumental musings and goings on. And then you have a lot of Elton John. You get his voice in the background towards the front, but towards the end, his voice is way more prominent. He's actually he's singing on this song. But I enjoy it, to be completely honest. It's not as lyrically dense as a lot of the other songs on this album, but it's one of those songs that just sounds good. Like everything just works in there, and the flow that you're bouncing flows off of each other, and they're not really saying anything of great consequence. They're kind of just having fun in this song, it feels like. But I like what it delivers, and it's one of the better songs on the album. And right after that one, Wall of Sound's a great song. But This Generation might be one of my favorite songs on this album. Now, similar to Wall of Sound, they're trading off flows, but unlike Wall of Sound, they're rapping almost the entire track. So you're getting, Busta Rhymes trading off rhymes with Q-Tip, Q-Tip trading off with Jerobi, Jerobi trading off with Fife Dog. They're all just bouncing back and forth, just like they're. I'm not even saying like each person gets a verse. They're like in one verse, you'll hear 4 voices. And it's something I'm not used to hearing in rap music nowadays. Typically, if there's a lot of rappers on a track, here's your verse, chorus, here's your verse, chorus, here's your verse, chorus. But in this song, they're bouncing off of each other so much, it adds like a fire, a ferocity to the track that just makes it seem way more like, once again, I want to bring up, it brings up tribal images, but not in a more traditional sense, not like drums banging, but more like, at a cipher or something, where it seems like a bunch of guys just sitting around rapping, just thinking of clever punchlines and stuff. Very cool track, and the instrumental on it is very, it kind of strikes a mix between the more chill Whatever Will Be and the more aggressive and boom bap sound of We the People. I really like This Generation, one of my favorite tracks. And then we go to the track after that one, Kids. Kids is the Andre 3000 feature. And this song is very good. Once again, it's one of those songs that doesn't really sound like anything else on the album. Especially with the intro. A lot of these songs on the album start with a very spacey instrumental intro. Doesn't just go straight into lyrics, but Kids, like less than half a second passes and you already hear Andre starting to spit. So it's really good. This track, to be honest with you, I like this track. I like it a lot, but I feel like Andre was maybe not playing it safe. I think he just didn't want to go as hard as he could go. Because earlier this year, Andre 3000 was also on Blonde, which is Frank Ocean's latest album. And that whole album was more or less an R&B or just a sing-songy album, not really much of a rap album. But Andre has a whole track to himself where he just spazzes. He just going at a million miles a minute with his lyrics, and he delivers a really awesome verse in that song. So when I saw him show up on the track listing in this album, the Tribe Called Quest album, I was expecting a little bit more from him. And what he delivers is still something really good. He's making some clever lines, especially at the end of the song, where he's trading bars with Q-Tip at the end. But I was expecting him to snap a little bit more. He's very much so just, saying his line, then waiting for the next go round of the beat to just say the next line that rhymes. It's I don't want to say lazy because it's good content, but it feels more laid back. I didn't know how I felt about that originally, but ultimately, after I've heard this album a million times, I appreciate it. So it's definitely a great song, definitely a good song on there if you're an Andre fan, and just one of the stronger tracks on there. Then we go from that to Melatonin. Now, I read this wrong initially. When I first saw this word, I was like, oh, melatonin, like the thing, the black pigment thing in our skin. Well, really, it's melatonin, which is like a sleeping pill, more or less. And I think this song is very good as well. It has one of the things I really liked about To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar's last full-length album. What I liked about his album is he had that funky sound throughout the entire album, but he never sacrificed actually rapping and actually having bars to implement that sound. And Melatonin has a lot of this, gives me like a lot of lounge vibes. Like I can imagine, some black film take any, like I'm thinking of what is it, that one Tyler Perry movie, I Can Do Battle by Myself with Taraji P. Henson. This is the type of song I can imagine them singing in the club from that movie. It's very laid back, very chill, very strong vocals in the chorus and everything. And then Q-Tip is more or less taking this one solo, as far as the lyrics are concerned, and he's rapping some pretty relevant bars, and he's rapping it, right on beat with everything else, and it matches the vibe of that like lounge performance while still being, a rap song and being delivered in that rap-ish way. Hard to explain. You gotta listen to it. But yeah, I love that track. I think it blends in perfectly with everything else, and it especially blends in really well with the next song, Enough. Enough is by far the sexiest track on this album. And I like it a lot. Typically, I get turned off by, oh, it's a sex song, but I like this one. Um, I get turned off from certain sex songs when it's all about just, oh man, here's the 33 things I'm gonna do to you tonight. This one is more just, rapping from a more affectionate viewpoint. Um, think about like it's more detailing. Oh man, I'm attracted to you, not necessarily I'm doing stuff right now, but I'm attracted to you, and here's all the reasons and ways I'm attracted to you. And it's a much more sexy track without being vulgar, which is something I appreciate. And they do get, I think, Q-Tip low key says "fuck the shit out of me" in one bar, but it's kind of like altered, so you don't really hear it that much. And it's not like I'm trying to censor the music or anything. It's just that that's a turn off for me sometimes. But I like this track. Definitely, even in the instrumentals on this track, it definitely has a more sensual vibe. And it blends in with the lyrics as well. Jerobi rapping about that type of stuff as well, along with Q-Tip. Just a solid track. Really don't have any problems with it. And that leads me to, this is the third time I'm saying this, one of my favorite songs on the album, Mobius. Mobius is just Consequence and Busta Rhymes just rapping over a beat. And I really like this track. No chorus to get in the way of the bars. It's just straight up just, here's an instrumental. And then right in the middle, right before Consequence ends his verse and right before Busta Rhymes jumps in, the instrumental switches, and then Busta Rhymes just takes that and just wrecks it. And then even before that, Consequence had a really good flow. I really like what he was saying. It's just a really good track. It just gets you hype. It gives you that feel when you hear a really good freestyle, and you just know they just tore that mic apart. every time I hear this song, it gives me that feeling. And so I really appreciate that. Big contrast to the two songs preceding it, where they're very chill, very mellow, very almost spiritual, or as I said, loud singerish. But Mobius is more like 8 Mile, take the mic off the cord, hanging in an empty cellar, just spit into that thing like your life depends on it. Very furious track, very great track. I love it a lot. And then that takes us on to Black Spasmodic. Fourth time I'm saying this in the video. One of my favorite songs on the album. Black Spasmodic, it's, I want to say it is Q-Tip and it is Phife Dawg. Both spitting over this beat, and then Consequence in there with the hook. Very catchy hook, I might add. This instrumental in this song just sounds like Saturday morning cartoons for me. It just sounds like one of those cartoon theme songs that just gets you out of bed and just wakes the parents up, and it's just like the most annoying thing in the world if you're like over the age of 40. But it's just the instrumental just gets me happy. It's something that you can really bounce to, and then they ride the beat very well. Phife and Q-Tip, they really ride it, and I love what they're saying. Phife Dawg, he's coming with his typical bar. No, I don't want to call it typical, but he's coming with the bars that you expect. The very ferocious, more or less stereotypical bars. For as much as I love them, that's what the words are. But then Q-Tip comes in the second verse, actually interrupts the chorus to start his verse, and more or less raps a really beautiful eulogy about Phife Dawg, kind of like from the viewpoint of Phife Dawg. I'm just saying, check out for my mother, make sure my memory survives, and keep repping Queens. Don't worry about the awards. It is very, very beautiful. If you actually listen to the lyrics, it's actually kind of surprising on a song like this, because Black Spasmodic, the instrumental gets you so caught up and you just vibing to the beat and how the words are riding off of it. Then you listen to the words and you're like, oh man, this is actually very sweet and very somber, very sad. But yeah, I love that track. It's a very good combination of two opposite emotions coming from the same track. I really like it. Then we go on to The Killing Season. The Killing Season is a good song. It's not my favorite track on the album. I'm not gonna say it's a bad track at all, because it just isn't. But it's just very somber sounding. Killing Season. This is the Kanye West feature on this one. He does vocals for the chorus on this one, and I think it's just fine. It's very much so. It's a very somber track, but it's more talking about like, oh man, don't believe the images and things you see. A lot of racism, systematic stuff is being rapped about here. References to strange fruit and everything, which is, a common phrase in Black history. Strange fruit being, oh, when you hang a black person, they're hanging from a tree. That's a weird piece of fruit there. It's very messed up if you don't know what it is. There's a piece of history for you. But yeah, it's just a very serious track, very somber track. The beat is very haunting, I would say. It kind of almost literally sounds like an organ in an old haunted house. But I like the song. I'm glad it's there. I'm glad we have a more important track to break up the more bouncy, vibey tracks of Mobius and Black Spasmodic. So Killing Season, good track. Not my favorite. It's a good track. And then we go on to Lost Somebody. Now, this song is basically the Phife Dawg memorial track. This is going to be Jerobi and Q-Tip just, rapping about their fallen comrade, rapping about their dead brother. It's a very beautiful song. The beat at first sounded very disjointed and just sounded like it clashed a lot as they were rapping over it. But, with some repeat listens, the beat actually very much so complements the background vocals. And these same background vocals are also, risen to the top for the chorus and for the ending of the song. And it's just a very beautiful song, Lost Somebody. The bars they're rapping about, it's more just, man, I miss you and I remember doing all this stuff with you. But it hits home because the death of Phife Dawg was earlier this year, 2017. Welcome. It was just a couple months ago. It's still fairly recent in a lot of people's minds. So it's a nice track. It's a very sweet track. It's a very, maybe not as somber as The Killing Season, but it's just very like, man, that happened. We're bummed, but to the future we go. And in the future, You have, well, as I talk about moving forward, we have the next track, which is called Moving Backwards. And this one actually has an Anderson Paak feature on it. Anderson Paak is an artist that I've listened to a lot in Dr. Dre's latest album, Compton. And I love his voice on stuff, but I don't get a lot of he's not a rapper. So when I listen to his music, it doesn't always resonate with me as I would like it to, because he's making music you can more vibe to rather than music to hear some cool instrumental or cool lyrics and such over some cool instrumentals. But anyway, moving backwards, Anderson Paak really brings a lot to this track. First off, Jerobi starts off the song. The track kind of starts very minimalistic, and then as Jerobi's rapping, the beat kind of gets added on underneath him, and I think that's a really cool effect. I kind of just want to take that one part of that song and just like use that as a ringtone or something, or just play it as a separate song by itself, because it's just like a really cool way of introducing a beat. But yeah, that part is very good, and then right after that you get Anderson Paak coming in with like no beat, very minimalistic, and then slowly the beat and the guitars and everything gets added on under him. I like this method of adding the beat into the song because it adds emphasis on the actual words that they are saying. And moving backwards is a lot of the lyrical content that you see in something like The Killing Season. A lot of references to police brutality, a lot of injustices in the black community. Lyrically, it's very good. Even Anderson Paak, he sings in between Jerobi's verse and Q-Tip's verse. And Anderson Paak's saying some real stuff as well as the other two rappers from Tribe. It's a very good song. It took a while to grow on me because the way they implement that beat on there is very jarring for the first few times. But once I know that the whole beat is all gonna fill out eventually, it is a very good track. Probably fifth time I'm saying this. One of my favorite tracks on the album. Oh God, it's gonna be a cliche thing at a certain point. Then right after moving backwards, we got Conrad Tokyo. Conrad Tokyo is the Kendrick Lamar feature that really got me hyped. I will say up front, Kendrick Lamar, his verse is maybe half that of Jerobi's verse. Both of them are on this track, and Jerobi, he has his whole verse with references to Donald Trump and SNL and No Time for Comedy. This is a serious time. And then you have Kendrick Lamar coming in afterwards with a really fiery, passionate verse, but it's gone in like 30 seconds. It's really disappointing, especially as a Kendrick fan myself. But what he did spit was, good stuff. It definitely got me hyped for when it was on. And the beat for Conrad Tokyo, it's very like evening news-ish. Like think like the whole dun, 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 when you're starting to watch like CBS Evening News or something. It definitely has that vibe to it. Kind of an abnormal beat to rap on. Once again, it's another instrumental that kind of clashes with a lot of other stuff on here, but because of the artists on the track, it still works. Their rapping styles kind of transcend most of these instrumentals, no matter how different that might sound. But yeah, Conrad Tokyo is a solid track. Would have loved to see more Kendrick on there, but it's a good track to have on the album nonetheless. And then second last track, I know the video's getting long, but second last track, Ego. Ego is more or less a solo Q-Tip job with a little bit of help from Jack White on guitar. Ego is a really good song. It's very, very, how do I say this? The one song that I think of when I hear this song is going back to Dr. Dre's Compton once again. There's a song with Snoop Dogg and John Connor. I can't tell you what the name of it is, but if you see, those are the only times those two names pop up together on the album. And just the beat of that song is just very aggressive and just very da dun da da dun da da dun da da dun. It sounds just like, I don't know, fucking Ghost Rider riding down a barren wasteland ready to chop off some heads with a fiery chain. The beat on Ego is very similar to this, except the lyrical content isn't really about that. Isn't about Ghost Rider cutting off heads. Lyrical content, it's talking about the ego and how the ego is something that pushes you forward, whether or not that's for good reasons or for bad reasons. And I think it's pretty clever how you know, people have this concept of the ego as either a bad thing that can get in the way or something that pushes you forward to greatness. And especially with, you know, you got Kanye featured earlier on the album anyway, so they're kind of speaking to some of that type of stuff. And I feel like they're low-key speaking to some Drake mannerisms in this song, with them talking about, you know, having a higher price lifestyle and kind of like vibes of selling out. Maybe that's just something I'm reading into it. But Ego is a very good track. The instrumental does sound aggressive, but I feel like appropriately so, because the whole song is about how an ego is an aggressive aspect of people, but it can be there for good or it can be there for bad. So Ego, very good track. And then that takes us to The Donald, the final track. The title for this track is kind of a bait and switch. You're expecting, oh, The Donald, let's go off on this election. But no, it's actually a reference to Don Juice, which is a nickname of Phife Dawg. And this last track is more or less just a hype up track for Phife Dawg specifically. Phife Dawg starts off the track, well, actually, Busta Rhymes starts off the track with a couple ad libs to, you know, get the vibe going. Then you get Phife Dawg coming in, delivering a really, really solid verse, a really good send-off verse. It was one of those verses where it's like, hey, let me show my lyrical skill real quick, and then be like, yo, if you want to challenge me, squat up. And then his verse is over. And I feel like that's a very fitting first for Phife Dawg, because Phife Dawg has always been, or look at me talking like I've known the man forever, but I feel like Phife Dawg, or at least his portrayal that I've learned after his passing, he's always been a fiery one. He's always been one ready and willing to prove himself on the microphone. And with a verse like that, I feel like that's a very fitting send-off, to just be like, yo, come at me. I feel like that's very good for him. And then right after Phife Dawg, you got Q-Tip basically kind of playing the role of, if you imagine this as if it's a cipher, Phife Dawg just delivered his verse, and then you got Q-Tip coming up, kind of just pushing that verse that you just heard, elevating that up a little bit more, just saying some more good things and some more kind things about Phife Dawg to just hype it up even more. And then after that, you just got a lot of Busta Rhymes just taking over the chorus, and then that chorus is just repeating itself towards the end of the song. The instrumental gets much slower, more somber, because this is a hype up track for Phife Dawg, but it's also like, you know, he's been dead for months now, and it's a sad time, so it's kind of like a more somber, like, goodbye, you'll always be the king of the mic in our hearts and in our minds type thing. And it's just a very sweet ending to the album, very satisfying ending to the album, and after hearing it, it definitely became one of my favorite albums of the year. The Tribe Called Quest is definitely someone, I've only heard Low End Theory as far as their other works goes, but I'm definitely going to try and go back and listen to their other stuff. They're definitely great. One of the greatest in hip-hop, big influence on a lot of these cats doing stuff today. Even earlier in the album, they reference J. Cole, Earl Sweatshirt, Kendrick Lamar, and Joey Badass as, you know, people that they are metaphorically passing the torch to when it comes to this rap industry, because a lot of them got their inspiration from these guys. So I'm glad that I finally heard a Tribe Called Quest album, and I'm also glad that I loved it as much as I did. This album really is a masterpiece. Doesn't sound like damn near any other rap album this year, and I'm glad that I finally heard something from them. I'm just sorry it took 18 years and the death of a legend to cause it. But yeah, that's what I thought about We Got It From Here. Thank you for your service, and I would like to thank you for watching this very long video. I'm sure I've been recording for more than 20. Oh boy, I've almost recorded for half an hour. Well, God bless any of you who stuck around. I appreciate it, and this will be posting near the beginning of 2017, so have a happy new year as well. Hopefully it'll be better than 2016 was, and I will talk to y'all in the next video. Adios and goodbye.